Hey, welcome back to the gym. We got Eric Schwager here. It's Thursday. If you guys can come up with a good name for this show, you should probably let us know what should Thursdays be called. We got a little bit of the yin yang here with the blonde beard with the dark beard. Mine's turned pretty gray pretty quick, actually, but today we're talking about strength, and we're talking about technique, and we're talking about when to go hard, when not to go hard, when to go heavy, and how your body actually how do you actually get strong versus the way the kind of status quo accepts how we all get strong. Because like the status quo kind of accepts that you're supposed to submit your body to your will, you got to go hard or go home, and you've got to constantly lift heavy, or you're not doing enough, or some version of that. Is that kind of like,
Totally.
like how do you explain, what's your explanation of like how most people, or even like that's how I started, when I started lifting, it was like, I'm going to break a record every day.
Right, yeah, totally. And you know where you really see that is in high school gyms with the guys.
Yeah. Well, that's where I came up with
right?
the break the record every day. I was 17 years old.
But yeah, so when we're building strength, we don't want to take too big of jumps that we can't handle. So in other words, we want to coax the gains. We want to slow and steady progress where we're not risking failure. For example, if we have an athlete who is doing a set of 3x5 reps, and on that last set they get the idea that they want to maybe they're working with something like in environments where the competition is high, or you have a lot of peers around you where you're all lifting and you don't have exact numbers written on your sheet. Like that's why you see it in high school a lot. And you're just so tempted to do the weight that's on the bar. That's where you always see it. But
or to outdo somebody else.
Or just because you think you're getting ahead that way.
Yeah, we used to have a sign above the door. We don't have this anymore that said "Leave your ego at home," or
right.
"Leave your ego right here," or some version of that, so that we, that people weren't going as heavy as they possibly could, but they were still pushing themselves along.
Yeah, and I think this is like one of the biggest factors holding people back in the gym without them realizing it.
Yeah. Because they think they're putting the effort in. They're like, no, I have to put this effort in. I have to put the effort in, and then it comes back to
and then they're plateaued and they don't realize why, and all their movements start looking really bad, and they can't figure it out.
And their body starts breaking down. And what we're talking about is when you go hard, and you just lift as much as you possibly can every time that you're in the weight room. And what we're telling you is that actually is detrimental to your gains, it's detrimental to your body, it's detrimental to your health. It's not going to get you where you want to go. Really, if you start working smart along with working hard, we have a place that we can move to. But if you just came in and just slammed, like me, I'm really good at hitting my head against the wall. I'm really good at it. I have all these injuries to prove it. You don't want those. Right. You don't want those. So like me doing all this stupid stuff actually led to me being half of the work smart.
And that's why it's nice having a coach. Like I love working with people with that mentality of go hard. Like they're always giving it that all, but as coaches we have to hold them back so that they don't burn themselves out and hit that point of where it becomes a negative.
Yeah. Not burn out mentally, but burn out like your
physically,
body.
Yeah, right. Physically, which leads to mentally, and and then, but like to be fair, like you don't want to be on the total other end of that either, where you're too conservative with your gains. Like that'll slow you down too. Although as coaches, I think we'd both rather see an athlete go a little too light and end with a few reps in the tank than be grinding this last rep out and it doesn't look quite right. Or worse, just totally getting stuck under the bar and having to have someone pull it off of them.
Yeah. But, so what we're saying is, so like if you wanted to make it really easy, never ever miss a lift.
Right.
If you miss a weight because there's too much weight on the bar, we screwed up.
Exactly.
Something went wrong.
Something went wrong.
What ends up happening? What ends up happening is we tend to like we're these conscious beings, and we have all these great thoughts, and our higher brain is so advanced, and we have these huge egos, and we think that we can submit our body to our will. Like, I just got to try harder, and I'll be able to think my way to lifting the bar because I believe I can. And there's a certain amount of that, yes. And then there's a certain amount where it's just like, no, that's stupid. There's hard work and there's smart work, and at some point a hard work. The difference between tough and stupid is a very fine line sometimes, and it's not always accurate. So when you're trying to make you're trying to submit your body to your will, I think that's the wrong way to go. I think it's better to think of it like the way that we're saying here is coaxing the game. That strength is more of a leadership or like a coaxing, like come on, than it is a submitting to your will. Is what we're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, and it comes down to the risk not being worth the reward. So the risk of failing a rep. Whether it could be technical failure where you still move the weight from point A to point B, but it just looks really bad, or there's total failure where you're starting to move the bar and it doesn't move, and then it starts going back down.
Yeah, and really you're almost in that case you're probably always going to have technical failure.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
but yeah, no kidding. But like what we're saying is like if you round your back in a deadlift, if your one elbow goes out like this while the other one's right here in a bench press, if your knee caves in on one side when you're doing a squat and you're trying to worm your way up, we're not stronger there, A, and B, technique broke down and we're just ingraining a bad movement pattern, and C, all that's going to do is eventually lead you down the road, and it might hit you right then or it might hit you months later that we got an injury and we're trying to avoid that. Nothing stops progress like an injury. Right. And nothing takes your health away. You're not healthy at that point. You're injured. But yeah, coaxing the game. You have to earn the right to move and to move the weight.
Yeah, and I think the risks versus reward. The risks would be it's a detriment to your missing a weight, right? If you're going too heavy, it's a detriment to your physical state, mental state, and neural state. And then the reward is so small. Like maybe you do get that rep and it looks all right, but that's just one lift out of, strength doesn't come in one lift. It doesn't come in 1 week. It doesn't come in 1 month. Right. It's years upon years. Yeah. And so slow and steady.
The consistency of building up amassing that amount of time is going to be really important. And really, when you get down to strength, like the way that I do strength is that I think that all of us we're strong enough that we could go outside and we can flip over cars right now. But in that, if you could do that, if your body just let you do that, you'd get injured, right? You'd tear a bicep, you'd throw out your back, you'd have all these injuries. So your body is set up its nervous system to impede you from using every bit of strength that you possibly can. And so when you're gaining strength, you're really just stripping your body's that impediment. Is that a word?
No, I'm the wrong guy to ask.
You're stripping your body's ability to impede that strength from happening, and so it ends up being able. It's like, okay, well, I'll let you move a little bit more weight. Okay, I'll let you move a little bit more weight. Okay, well, you've earned this. Okay, like now I'll let you move a little bit more weight. But if you stop the body, if you lift and you miss a lift, or you lift too much weight and it goes all funky and you have to do that worm move to stand up. I don't know what that was. Or you get all wonky when your lifts. Your body's like, nope, told you, shouldn't have done that. I told you shouldn't have done that and you didn't listen to me. I'm going to shut you down. And it doesn't give you the strength. Whereas if you would have coaxed it along and been like, okay, I'm just gonna get what I can, leave it alone, get what I can, leave it alone, get what I can, leave it alone. Then you get stronger over time. Right. Is that?
Yeah, totally. And I think we can let's elaborate on those on the negatives so people really understand why. So one of the things I mentioned, it'll like missing a rep, failing has a negative on your mental state. So like in the gym, you want to build a foundation of confidence when lifting, and you want to come in and be ready to crush it and be super confident. The stronger you get, the more important confidence is, because you don't want to be getting under hundreds of pounds and be questioning yourself whether you're going to make the lift or not. But now you fail on a rep, and now you perceive that weight as heavy, even if you're a beginner and you're going up so fast, and you might look back on that weight in 6 weeks and it would be like, oh, that was my first set today, like that was easy. Yeah. But if you would have failed on that 6 weeks ago, now you're thinking of it as heavy. Yep. So there's that mental aspect. There's also the physical aspect, where you just basically you keep doing that, and the people who do this generally don't. It's not just on one lift of one exercise of one workout. Like it usually becomes a habit, and you'll see it maybe not every set, but a lot of people will make a habit of doing that on all their last sets, and even then, it might be your last set, but that's still going to take away from the exercises to come and the exercises in the future. Like when you're grinding through a really heavy rep, say you're on a bench press and you have to grind through the rep, you're spending a ton of time under there, giving it everything you got. That takes a ton of recovery resource. And now, like that might take a week to get back to feeling like fresh again after something like that, and that's going to
a whole week. Appreciate what he just said. It might take an entire week for your body to recover from that one lift.
Right, and so any pressing exercise you have after that, like you're probably not just pressing once that week, and you have another pressing exercise in a few days, and you're going to really feel it there. So really you're just taking from your future self to use then because you're
it's robbery,
right? Like. Because of your ego, and then you're gonna it's gonna come back to, so any potential reward there, you're really just stripping of like from a future lift. Generally.
You strip from yourself in the moment. You strip from your body in the future, and you have kind of a mental setback there. And the mental setback, I can attest to this probably more than most people can because of the number of injuries that I've had. But you saw me deadlift and squat this morning, and like every time I get under the bar, I think of my hip. And it only took, when I did my hip, it was because I lifted something a little bit poorly, and I think I was 20 years old, and I lifted something I didn't appreciate the weight that was on the bar. It was only 135 pounds. I just kind of sloppily picked it up. My hip popped. I blew up my hip, and I'm still dealing with that. I'm 33 now, and so I'm still dealing with that when I get underneath the bar to squat.
Yeah.
That's still a mental thing where it's just like, oh my God, I have to make sure that my hip is in perfect position, and so you don't want those. Like right. you need to appreciate, you need to treat the bar, whatever weight you're using, whether it's 5 pounds or 500 pounds, you got to treat it like it weighs 500 pounds. Like you have to appreciate the weight that's on the bar.
And just to give like another example, like of you not getting ahead, like maybe you get, you try to do 10 more pounds than you should, but it's like, getting 10-pound jumps for 2 weeks and then plateauing and then having to come back from that for the next 4 weeks is not as good as getting consistent just 5-pound jumps each week. And that's just an arbitrary number. Like
you'll go like this. You just
right.
You'll shoot up and then you'll go
shoot
across,
up really quick,
and then you'll start coming down.
Yep.
Yeah, the diminishing return will start happening. But you could have kind of gone like this. And then it'll start tearing off. Like because you'll be able to progress for longer.
So and so most people know, like, if you stop and think about it, like if you're about to add, if you look back at your last week, and like we're training a lot of people who are, have a low training age, so they get like they can make 5 to 10. Yeah. So how long you've been training? In other words, you're a novice. So strength training has diminishing returns. The longer your training age, the longer you've been doing it, the slower you progress. Yep. And so like when we use these numbers, we're kind of define novices, general public. When they come in here, they can jump 5 to 10 pounds a week on something, which is a number like we would drool at. Like at this point, like if we jump 5 pounds in 4 to 6 weeks on an exercise, we'd be super happy with it.
Oh shit, yeah.
Right? And there's guys a lot stronger than us who would be happy with 10 to 20 pounds in a year.
If I got one extra rep at the same weight,
right,
I'd be perfectly happy.
And so if you have a training log and you look a week back and it's the same, and you're doing the same reps, say, and you are trying to, and you like, oh man, I really want to get this today. My partner just did this weight. It's 15 pounds up from what I did last week, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Well, if you just stop, like, you probably know it's too heavy. If you stop back and think like 15 pounds in 1 week, is that sustainable? Like that's 60 pounds a month. So what, 2 months from now, you're going to be doing 120 pounds more. Like, and like that will drop off, but that's just a huge increase when you look at it like that. So you probably know it's not realistic.
Especially for a non-competitive athlete that has a life that, maybe if you're on, maybe if you're sleeping for 12 hours a day, you don't have kids, you don't have a job, you can rely,
Right. Yeah. And you're a novice, and you're high school or on a bunch of with natural testosterone. Could you?
Yeah.
Then you could go up to 120 in 2 months.
Yeah, you're going through puberty, so you're basically on steroids. Maybe you could do that. So you don't want to ever hit a wall, fail, plateau. You basically accumulate so much stress that you can't recover from, jeopardize successive workouts later in the week. And so that's the negative it has on your physical
performance, and then there's neural performance as well.
Yeah, you want to go into that?
Yeah, sure.
I thought you were examples for that.
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to motor you might hear the term motor engram, which is basically just a stored set of instructions in your brain for your muscles to do so, like a movement skill.
And this isn't a mindset thing. Well,
right. This is
a neurological, real, measurable science. You know, like it's your neurology. It's not like, I don't know, fibromyalgia or some silly shit like
how
that.
you move, like your brain sending that signal for your brain telling my brain telling my hand to do this right now is a motor engram. Like, and so we want to improve. We always want to be improving our motor patterns, not polluting them. And so so whenever we're missing a rep, and so we've been doing really good form, and then you miss this rep and you screw it all up, and it's looking really bad. Like you're making a big, you're totally polluting that motor engram.
Like by polluting it, that's not a good thing. You don't want that. You want a good, clean atmosphere in there. Very straight line, very efficient. And when we get away from that, then we eventually are going to get an injury. So it's going to be like this cyclical effect where the physical adaptation was bad and the neural adaptation was making the physical adaptation worse.
Right.
And so eventually it just is this loop that is just not, it's just going to end up with an injury. It's just, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen.
Right. So here's the way I can kind of explain it. We'll see if anyone understands what I'm saying. So I got this analogy. It's a jukebox analogy where so in a jukebox, right, you type in a number and it takes the CD and it plays it. And so that CD is your motor engram, your pattern. Like I'm doing a squat today, so I want to take my squat pattern, make it look as good as I can. So say that CD, which is already beat up. So in this example, you got these CDs as a kid and they were really nice, but they've been getting beat up as you get older. And depending on the degree of that, depending on how well you've taken care of yourself. So that CD playing perfectly would be a good motor pattern on a squat. Everything looks really good, but it's got scratch. It got every time you do something bad, you're polluting that pattern. You're beating that CD up. There's scratches on it. But every time you super focus and dial in your technique and you're really focused about it, warm-up sets is a really good time to do that, where the weight's light enough that you can actually think while you do it. But so you type in this number, this jukebox comes down and plays a thing, and that's the nervous signal going to your muscles. But every time you do a bad rep on it, either because you're unfocused or because you went too heavy, and now you're grinding and you're sending the signal, but it's totally not the signal you want. You're not moving like you are. Now you're putting a big scratch in that CD, and then next time, and so every time now it turns you're going to get it's going to sound weird. It might skip, and so we're trying to always improve that, take those scratches away, make that CD sound really nice. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. But I don't read all the books on strength conditioning that we have, and you'll see that analogy too. So I think it's a good analogy, but I'm a terrible.
Yeah. So it's more than just.
What about you guys? Was that a good analogy? Did that work out for you? Oh yeah, but yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I mean, you get a scratch in it, or let's say you get a piece of mud on it, and it's all wonky and going side to side because one side is heavier than the other, and it doesn't spin the way that it's supposed to, and then you start getting all this other stuff. And Reeve says that made sense.
Cool.
And stuff starts going poorly, and then it doesn't spin the way it's supposed to, and then eventually the CD player breaks, which could be the analogy for your knee, the structure of your knee, whatever. And things don't go as well. Whereas if you stopped, you cleaned the CD, you took care of the CD, maybe you can't get every one of those scratches out because you're dealing with, a lifelong.
Right. Yeah. So every time you squat down to do something that would be that'd be a CD, maybe that would be the same artist but a different song, if that makes sense.
Sure,
you might have a back squat, but it's all within the squat CD.
Yeah, maybe we should
they
get
all
on
different
players.
tracks. Yeah, right. Yeah,
I just found out this the other day. Like we were talking about this in here. Like your computer doesn't take CDs. My computer doesn't take CDs because someone came in and handed us a CD and were like, "Hey, will you look at my MRI scans?" And we were like, "Oh, we'd love to, but
yeah, kids who are in like
we can't now.
preschool right now won't really.
Yeah, they were like,
really
"What are
understand what
CDs?"
It'd be like me with a cassette deck, or I don't know what you with what.
The only way that I remember records was that I would get beat up by my older siblings when they were listening to them because I would jump up and down and hit the ground really hard so it could skip. I thought it was hilarious. They didn't think they didn't think it was so funny, but no. But I think that's accurate. Maybe a record player is a little bit better because a record player does, like, as it gets used, it just wears down over time and it gets beat up, and you had to take really good care of it, and it got little scratches in it. And a broken record would just sit there and play the same little portion of the song over and over and over and over. But yeah, like as far as coaxing the game, that's what we're talking about, is coaxing it along. I think the way that you need to think of this is like you're just leading it. Sort of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, you can lead your body along, but if you try to submit your body to your will, it's going to tell you to stop. And Eric's analogy is a little nicer than mine. The analogy that I usually use is that expecting your body to get strong from you coming in and just beating the shit out of it is like beating your kids and expecting them to enjoy doing their chores and love you and give you hugs. You know, it's just not going to happen. You're mean. You're being so coming in and going hard. You need a certain amount of that, but you got to work smart too, because you don't want to be mean to your body. You want to work with your body to get you to where you want to go, so it can perform in your life the way that you want to experience this thing. That's how I look at it anyway. But when we talked about a little bit about technique and stuff, is technique across the board how everybody should squat this exact way, or is technique an individual deal?
Definitely individual, and to the point where two individuals might have a totally, like for instance, a back squat, which a lot of people know where the barbell's across your back. Like we don't use that very often here because like it's
a lot of people.
You have to have like
torch them.
Yeah, right. The mobility to do it. Some people just aren't really built for it, or no longer built for it, or they're just not ready for it.
Yeah, there's some people that you put a 45-pound bar 45 pounds would be an absolute max out squat for them, and so you're gonna do 5 sets of 5, and you're gonna start with a barbell.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Yeah. Well, that's another. Right. If it's just too heavy to.
Or you have somebody like me that threw a baseball way too many times and dislocated a shoulder and had 2 third-degree shoulder separations. I just can't get my arm back in that position without just tearing apart my shoulder. So are you going to do back squats with someone like me? No. Yeah. And so it makes a difference.
Yeah. So we would program around movement patterns, not around specific exercises. So a squat would be a knee dominant pattern where your knee is going into flexion, where your foot is coming closer to your hip.
You're moving more at your knee than you are at most of the other joints.
Yeah, and so there's a ton of different variations of that, and you can always find one that works for someone.
And everybody's going to have a little bit different of a foot placement too. So like for me, I tend to, my feet are kind of more like this, just because one hip's a little bit different than the other, and a lot of people are like that. Like one hip is just a little different than the other hip, so their feet are just a little different. So even from side to side. So like that's kind of the idea. There is no perfect technique.
Yep, totally.
It's an individual case. But how's that get into like coaxing the game? Like when you're looking at technique, we were talking about this earlier, but I don't remember what we used for it.
As far as
I remember it was you can have terrible technique and still be still be able to move a lot of weight.
Right. Yeah.
But
like
are you
that's
strong?
the thing. Yeah, well, and you're certainly not as strong as you could be.
Yeah.
If you're, because what's so cool about it is your safest positions are also your strongest positions. Like, for example,
say again. So that's good.
So your safest positions are also your strongest positions. So for example, when you are squatting, if your knee caves in towards the middle, you go into, that's called valgus, and now you're dumping a bunch of stress on your knee. Like that's a weak position. It's also an unsafe position.
That's the position that almost all ACL injuries happen in that position that you just described. Almost all of them. Almost 100%.
Yeah. And so what's so awesome about it is that, like, it's not you don't have to choose between safety and strength, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like when when you're holding a neutral spine on a deadlift and you're hinging up, that's the safest position to be. It's also the strongest. So when you see someone, and granted, you can totally get strong without that, because there's just some people who are just amazing athletes and they can, do it, but it's not a question of are they strong or not, it's how much stronger could they be.
Yeah, and I think there might be a distinction to make there. Like, just because they can move a ton of weight doesn't necessarily mean they're strong. I think it kind of depends on how you define strong.
Sure, yeah, right.
So, are they strong if they just use their spine to deadlift instead of their hips and their hamstrings? I don't know. Are they really strong?
I mean, not in the way that we care about, because we're trying to create like a robust strength where like you can move things, but you're also like a good strength should make you more resilient to injury.
Yeah.
So like those people who are doing that are going to get injured at some point, and they're going to have to pay for it. But
so wait, I'll read it. We'll take questions here in about 5 minutes. I can't read it from this far away. It must not have the same eyes I had when I was 19. But yeah, I think that's spot on. Like with a deadlift, if you are rounding your back completely when you're able to move a lot of weight, we've seen this happen where people they just completely use they're super strong in the sense that they can move a lot of weight, but what are they doing to their spine when that happens? They're just tearing it apart. So it's not really so at some point that they might be able to move a lot of weight, but at some point they're not going to be able to move at all. So that's no good. But so we really want to. What are some of the highlights we've gone over so far? Because we're getting towards the end. We can
take a little recap. So you want to on your journey to strength, you want to coax the gains, not force them. The risk is not worth the reward of the risk of failing a rep or getting a sloppy rep is not worth the reward of that extra 10 pounds that's on the bar.
Yeah.
Or the dumbbell or whatever.
And if you're patient with it, you'll get more from being patient with it.
Yeah. And the 3 biggest negative impacts that going too heavy, too often, too early, etc., is physical, mental, and neural.
Yeah. You just end up breaking down, and you don't make the gains that you could have gained. So if you're just a little bit more patient up front, you're going to get a lot more on the back end. Which kind of goes into like the mindset stuff, where it's like the delayed gratification things. But technique is an individual deal. You have to think about it from your own individual thing. That's why we do the strategy session out of Grid Gym. And you want to treat every rep like it weighs 500 pounds. You have to appreciate your body's ability to move, and because of that, you have to think of it as earning the right. You earn the right to move. If you do an ugly lunge, well, we need to not do lunge. We need to do some other exercise because you have to earn the right to move through that lunge. And if it looks like an ugly deadlift, well, we haven't earned the right to move that weight. We got to get in better position to be able to move that weight. We have to earn the right. And that's how you coax the gain along, how you coax your body into getting stronger. I think we have a couple, Julie has a question. So I pressed 85 this morning at my age, 50-ish. Could I push myself to over 100 pounds? I think the thing with that is, which is a lot, we didn't really give any like hard numbers here, but if you got up to 85 pounds, and you felt good there, you felt like you could probably do, let's say you did 5 reps of 85 pounds, and you felt like you could have done 2 more reps at 85. That probably means that you could probably get pretty close to 100 if you really, for 1 rep. But it's kind of a question of should you. So if you stayed at that 85 this week and next week, and then maybe moved up to 95 next month, you're going to progress. Then we can make these incremental gains over time instead of just like, let's just try to grip and rip and see what we can do. Like we were saying before, I don't know if it's the risk is worth the reward in that department. If that makes sense. Do you have anything on that, Eric?
Yeah, no. I just don't know. Julie, are you saying could you ever do 100, or could I push myself to?
I was taking in the moment, so I was thinking could she have done 100?
Does that mean, or are you asking, since you did 85, I think you did 85 for 3 this morning, does that mean you can do 100 for 1 now? Or like, if you're still on here, Could you clarify, and then we can better answer?
They can't actually respond for 45 seconds, so it becomes kind of a...
Now she says it.
Oh, awesome.
I think, yeah.
So it's really hard to go back and forth, but yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, can you reach 100 someday? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you could reach, you could reach 100 in 2 months.
Yeah.
The way,
realistically.
For free.
Yeah, you keep coming consistently, you keep working at it and working smart. That's why, in our programs out here, a lot of times we're not just going heavy all the time. We have like speed work built into the program. I think when you look at speed work, like we're trying to move the weight faster than we normally would. We're still under control coming down and then fast on the way up, right? But I think when the more time that goes on, the more I look at that, I'm almost like, that's just like practicing the rep. It's more like practice than it is like speed work. Like
sure.
I think there's something there speed-wise, but at the same time, I think you just get better at doing the rep.
Yeah.
And then because you're better, you have more integrity of the joints and more of that neural pattern is kind of, straightened itself out, done its thing. Then all of a sudden your body's just like, well, yeah, you want to be stronger? Here you go.
Yeah, I totally view speed work as training your neural system as opposed to your muscular system in general.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think that you can have one without the other, but I definitely think that your neural system is a, for lack of a better word that's coming to my brain right now, I think your neural system's a shitload stronger than your muscular system, and really there's tons of science that would prove that.
What is your expectation for percentage gain in an exercise in 1 year of consistent training?
Oh, like what is a good rate of progress to you? I don't know, because I get like...
It's all about context in that question. That's super hard to answer, but I think there's some things we can say, I think one thing we do at Grit Gym, everyone's going to be deadlifting their body weight.
Or moving towards their, because some people come in and it's just like, you can't, you can't deadlift right away. I know you'll want to, but you can't. We can't deadlift with you. So I think you should be moving towards being if you can't do a squat, we need to be moving towards being able to do a squat. And if you can't do a deadlift, we need to be moving towards being able to do it.
Which is why that question is so hard to answer. What mobility restrictions do we have to work for first? Can we even start right into strength training?
Yeah. And personally, though, I do think within the first year, I want to be aiming for on the low side, being able to deadlift anybody being able to deadlift their body weight, even females. And really, I'm looking more towards, can we get to about 1.5 times body weight? I think that's a good number for most people. So like Janet doing 260, that's well over 1.5 times her body weight. I'd like to see her over 300. I think that'd be pretty cool. Just to be like, hey, you doubled your body weight. It'd be awesome. But okay, Julie said it makes sense. But yeah, rate of progress is such a tough question because. Especially like percentage, like putting a number on it. Like chin-ups is one that I get a lot where people are like, can I get a chin-up in a year? I'm like, well, we got to drop 50 pounds first. There's just so much going into it.
And probably above all is, you got to put in context of your sleep and nutrition too, because that's going to be the deciding factor about the biggest factor on your...
For me, health of the individual has to come before performance anyway. Mm-hmm. So really tough question to answer, but a really good question to ask.
Do we know?
Oh, that's the same question. But we're getting to the end of our time here. Guys, can you please do us a favor and click the share button, send this out to everybody that you know, especially if you think this is a good message that people need to hear. We're extremely convicted by what we talk about. We have a ton of knowledge that we've accumulated over the years from experience and from reading books and from doing different information products. And so I hope that you guys get a ton from this, but hopefully you'll feel comfortable sharing it out to the rest of the world too. And comments are awesome. This is probably one of the most commented on shows that we've had ever.
Love answering questions.
So comments are fantastic. I really like having the interaction and really appreciate it. But anything you want to send them off with before we jump off the call?
I covered all on my side. So
got
thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Remember, don't try to force the gain. You want to work hard, but you want to work smart. So you think of the gains coming from you're coaxing your body along. You're not trying to submit it to your will. It's a leadership. It's a coaxing.
Yep.
Ready to go?
Ready.
All right. Thanks for being here, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.